Imagine finding out that one ordinary motion, the same one you make every single morning, rolling over in bed to shut off the alarm, is the exact thing setting off the violent spinning you've been blaming on your heart, your pressure, maybe even a stroke. The room tilts hard. Your stomach drops. Then, almost as fast as it hit, it's gone. The scan came back clean. They sent you home. And here's what nobody had the time to tell you on the way out. I'm Dr. Thomas Grant. For more than 35 years, I practiced internal medicine and geriatrics, sitting across from people exactly your age, listening to stories that the modern exam room simply doesn't make room for anymore. I'm retired now. I started this channel because I got tired of watching good people get rushed out the door with a prescription and no real explanation. We're climbing toward 100,000 folks who want the truth told plainly, and if that's you, you belong here. So, here's my promise for the next 20 minutes. By the end, you'll understand exactly why your world spins, you'll know which kind of dizziness you're dealing with, and you'll walk away with a simple tool you can bring to your next appointment. Stay with me. This one matters more than most people realize. Let's start with something almost no one explains, even though it makes everything else click into place. Your sense of balance isn't one thing. It's three. I call it the 3 anchor rule, and once you see it, you'll never think about dizziness the same way again. Anchor 1 is your inner ear. Deep inside your skull sits a tiny set of fluid-filled tubes, and they work like a carpenter's level, the kind with the little bubble that tells you when a shelf is straight. Every time your head tips or turns, that fluid shifts, and your brain reads the angle. Anchor 2 is your eyes. They feed your brain a constant picture of where the floor is, where the walls are, what's holding still, and what's moving. That's why dizziness almost always feels worse in a dark room. One anchor just went quiet. Anchor 3 is your body's own position sense, something doctors call proprioception, from the Latin word for one's own. Tiny sensors in your feet, your ankles, your neck report your position back to your brain every second, even with your eyes shut. Now here's the part most people miss. Your brain checks all 3 anchors against each other, constantly, looking for agreement. When the 3 agree, you feel planted, solid. When one of them lies, or 2 of them argue, your brain panics for a moment. That panic is the spin. That's all dizziness really is. A disagreement between your anchors. The first and most common cause has a long medical name, so let's strip it down. Doctors call it benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. Benign means it won't kill you. Paroxysmal, from the Old Greek, just means it comes in sudden short bursts. Positional means movement triggers it. Put plainly, it's a loose crystal in your inner ear. Yes, a crystal. You know the feeling. You turn your head toward the nightstand, and the whole room lurches sideways like a ship hitting a wave. Heart pounding, certain something just broke inside your skull. Most folks blame their blood pressure. Some blame their neck. A lot of them get sent home with a pill for a problem they don't have. Here's what's actually happening. Inside that inner ear level I described, you've got microscopic calcium crystals called otoconia, which literally means ear dust. They're supposed to stay put in their little chamber. But with age, the glue that holds them weakens, and a few break loose and tumble into one of the balance canals where they don't belong. Picture a single grain of sand that drifted into the gears of a fine watch. The gears were perfect. The sand wasn't. Every time you move your head, that grain rolls, and it screams a signal at your brain that says you're spinning violently, when really you barely moved at all. Now you got lucky, because this is the harmless kind. But I want you to understand what that same morning could have looked like. Sudden spinning in an older adult can also mean a stroke in the back of the brain. Same dizziness on the surface. Completely different ending. That's why the ones who brush it off and the ones who panic and get medicated for the wrong thing both lose. The good news is enormous. The research is clear that loose crystal vertigo accounts for a large share of all dizziness cases doctors see, and it doesn't need medication at all. It needs repositioning. A trained clinician can guide your head through a precise series of tilts that rolls that crystal back home, often in a single visit. So here's your action. At your next appointment, ask one specific question. Has BPPV been ruled out? Not as an afterthought. As the first thing checked. The second cause flips everything you just learnt on its head, because this kind of dizziness has nothing to do with your ear at all. Nothing. And it's one of the most missed problems I saw in 35 years of practice. This isn't the spinning kind. This is the foggy kind. A floaty, swimming feeling, like you're walking across a mattress that gives a little with every step. Your feet feel far away. You reach for railings you never used to need. Most people chalk it up to just getting older. Their doctor nods and agrees. Nobody runs the cheap blood test that would crack it open. The culprit is often a simple vitamin, B12. Here's the mechanism, and it's frustrating in how simple it is. Every nerve in your body is wrapped in insulation, the way the wiring in your house is wrapped in rubber. That insulation is built and maintained with B12. When your B12 runs low, the insulation frays. The signals racing from your feet up to your brain start leaking and slowing down like a phone call breaking up on a bad connection. Your brain stops getting clean position reports from your legs. And that, right there, is your fog. Now here's the reversal that catches people. The most common reason older adults run low on B12 isn't diet. It's a medication. If you take metformin for blood sugar, and millions of people over 60 do, you should know that long-term metformin quietly blocks B12 absorption in your gut. So the very pill keeping your diabetes in check could be slowly starving your nerves. I watched it happen more times than I can count. What could it have been if ignored? Left alone for years, low B12 can cause permanent nerve damage that no amount of vitamins later can undo. People lose their footing, then their confidence, then their independence, all over a deficiency that costs a few dollars to find. Let me tell you about Eunice, retired seamstress in Chattanooga, sharp as a tack, on metformin for 9 years. She came in convinced something was wrong with her brain because the floor never felt solid anymore. Her B12 was on the floor too. 3 months of correcting it, and the fog lifted most of the way. Not all the way. We'd waited a little too long for that. But most of the way. Your action here is simple. Ask your doctor to check your B12 and your vitamin D both, especially if you've been on metformin for years. It's a basic blood draw, and it answers a question far too many people never think to ask. Quick pause, because what's coming next is the one that surprises people most. If any of this is landing, do me a small favor. Hit that subscribe button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more folks who've been told their dizziness is all in their head. And here's where it gets interesting. Leave me a comment with one word. Spinning, if your dizziness whirls. Or floating, if it's more of a fog. I read these, and they tell me which video to make next. Now hold on, because the third cause is the one almost nobody, not even some doctors, sees coming. The third cause is the strangest one I ever treated, because there's nothing physically wrong with you at all. Let me say that again. Every scan is clean, every test is normal, and you are still dizzy every single day. Doctors finally gave this a name. They call it persistent postural perceptual dizziness. I just call it a brain stuck in alarm mode. Here's how it happens, and it's heartbreaking once you see it. You have one bad episode of that crystal vertigo we talked about. 1. The room spins. You think you're dying, and then it passes. The crystal settles. You're fine, physically, but your brain just got the scare of its life. And your brain's whole job is to predict danger and protect you, so it files that moment away and decides moving your head is now a threat. From then on, it runs a quiet alarm in the background, every waking minute, bracing for the spin to come back. That constant bracing creates a low hum of unsteadiness that never fully lifts. It's not coming from your ear anymore. It's coming from your own nervous system standing guard over a danger that's already gone. Picture a smoke alarm that went off once during a small kitchen fire, and now it shrieks every time you so much as boil water. The fire's out. The alarm never got the message. I think of Hazel, former church organist in Boise, played every Sunday for 40 years. She had one episode of crystal vertigo that cleared in a week, but the fear never left. She started holding her head perfectly still. Then she stopped driving. Then she stopped going to the grocery store, because the other carts moving past her felt like the floor was sliding. Within a year, this vibrant woman had shrunk her entire world down to one armchair. Her ear had healed completely. Her alarm never shut off. And here's the part that changes everything. The fix for this is not a maneuver and not a vitamin. It's retraining the brain. A specific kind of talk therapy, the kind that teaches your nervous system that movement is safe again, has strong evidence behind it. Sometimes a doctor adds a particular antidepressant, not because you're depressed, but because that exact medication calms an overactive alarm. If your dizziness has hung around for months after a scare, with every test coming back normal, this is the conversation your 5-minute appointment never has time for. Your action: ask whether PPPD could explain what no scan has been able to. The fourth cause works through a completely different system. Not your ear, not your nerves, but your plumbing, your blood pressure. This one has a signature you'll recognize the second I describe it. You stand up, maybe off the edge of the bed, and for a few seconds the room goes grey and swimmy. Little spots, a wave of lightheadedness, then it clears. Doctors call this orthostatic hypotension, which is just a fancy way of saying your pressure drops too far when you stand. Most people think it's nothing. Sometimes it's the warning before a fall. Here's the mechanism. When you stand, gravity yanks a pint of your blood downward into your legs in an instant. In a young body, the vessels clamp tight and the heart speeds up to push blood back to the brain before you ever notice. But that reflex gets lazy with age, and certain medications blunt it even more. Blood pressure pills, water pills, even some prescribed for the prostate. So for a few seconds, your brain runs short on fuel, and it tells you so with that grey, dizzy wave. Think of it like flicking on too many lights at once and watching them dim, because the power couldn't keep up with the sudden demand. What could it have been? Those few seconds of dizziness are exactly the window where people fall. And a fall after 65 isn't a small thing. A broken hip can be the start of losing everything that came before it. The dizziness is mild. What it can lead to is not. The good part is that this one is often very fixable, and the action is gentle. When you get up, do it in 2 stages. Sit on the edge of the bed first, count to 10 slowly, let your body catch up, then stand. And bring your full medication list to your doctor and ask one question: could any of these be dropping my pressure when I stand? Sometimes a small timing change fixes it completely. The 5th cause is one most people have never heard named, and that includes plenty who've had it for years. It's called vestibular migraine. And before you say it, no, you don't need a headache to have it. That's exactly why it hides. When most of us hear migraine, we picture a pounding head in a dark room, but in this version, the headache takes a back seat or skips the party entirely, and the main event is dizziness. Spells that can last hours, not seconds. Often, with a strange sensitivity to light or sound riding along, people get worked up for crystal vertigo, for their heart, for their neck, and the real answer was a migraine wearing a disguise the whole time. The mechanism lives in the brain itself. A migraine isn't really a headache disorder. It's a brain that overreacts to ordinary signals, firing waves of irritation across its own surface. When those waves wash over the balance centers instead of the pain centers, you get vertigo without the head pain. Same storm, different part of the coast. Let me tell you about Dolores. Retired librarian in Asheville, spent 3 years and a small fortune chasing a diagnosis. Heart workups, ear tests, even talk of surgery. A neurologist finally asked whether anyone in her family got migraines. Her mother had, badly. That one question unlocked it, and the treatment that helped her had nothing to do with her ears at all. So here's your action. If your dizzy spells last for hours, come with light or sound sensitivity, and especially if migraines run in your family, write that down and bring it to a neurologist. Ask directly whether vestibular migraine fits. It's a question that can save you years. So let's pull this together, because 5 causes can feel like a lot to carry. Crystal vertigo is a loose crystal that needs repositioning, not a pill. The foggy kind is often a B12 problem, especially on metformin. The dizziness that won't quit after every test comes back clean is a brain stuck in alarm mode. The grey wave when you stand is your blood pressure falling behind. And the spells that last hours with light sensitivity may be a migraine in disguise. Here's the thread running through all 5. Dizziness is almost never a mystery and almost never a death sentence. It's a signal with a source, and nearly every source has a real, specific fix that doesn't involve years of the wrong medication. I want to give you something to carry into that exam room. I call it the steady ground card. It's 5 questions, but asked together, they cut through a rushed appointment fast. 1. Has BPPV been ruled out specifically? 2. Can we check my B12 and vitamin D? 3. Could any of my medications be dropping my blood pressure when I stand? 4. If every scan is clean, could this be PPPD? 5. Could this be a vestibular migraine, even without much of a headache? And while you wait for that appointment, there's something safe you can start today. Sit up tall, hold one finger out at arm's length, fix your eyes on it, and slowly turn your head side to side while keeping your gaze locked on that fingertip. 2 or 3 turns each way. That simple drill retrains the reflex that steadies your vision, and the evidence that it helps is solid. A little dizziness during it is normal. That's the training working. Now I want to step back from the medicine for a moment and talk to you, not your symptoms. For too long, dizziness in older folks has been waved off as just part of aging. Something to live with, something to medicate and forget. I don't accept that, and neither should you. You are not a chart number. You are not a 1-5-minute slot to be filled and emptied. You are a whole person with a body that's trying to tell you something real. So hear me on this. You have the right to ask why, and to keep asking until the answer makes sense. You have the right to a second opinion when the first one doesn't fit what you feel in your own body. And you have the right to walk into that office not as a passive patient, but as the most informed person in the room about your own life. The folks who get answers aren't the lucky ones. They're the ones who ask better questions. Knowing how your balance works, knowing these 5 causes, knowing what to ask, that's the difference between living small and scared, and living steady. You've earned the right to live steady. One honest note before we close. Everything I've shared today is for your education, to help you ask sharper questions and understand your own body better. It is not a diagnosis, and it's not a substitute for your own doctor, someone who knows your history and can examine you in person. Please bring these ideas to a qualified professional before acting on any of them. If this gave you something worth knowing, do 3 quick things. Subscribe, so you don't miss what comes next. Share this with one person you love who's been struggling with dizziness, because it might be the thing that finally helps them. And drop that one word in the comments, spinning or floating, so I know how to help next. Your body is talking. I'm just helping you listen.